As you guys know, UFC 319 is right around the corner, and UFC 319 will be taking place on August 16th in Chicago in the United Center Stadium. And for this video, I'm just going to be providing you guys with my detailed predictions for every single fight happening on this card. And overall, this card is looking to be a pretty good pay-per-view. I don't think it's necessarily like stacked, but this card has a lot of good fighters, quality matchups, and you can tell the UFC, the matchmakers, they really took their time with this card. And this card is pretty underrated. I would give it like a 7.5 out of 10, maybe an 8 out of 10 once we see like actually how the fights turn out. But overall, this pay-per-view is looking really good. And without further ado, let's hop straight into my predictions. So opening up the card in the women's flyweight division, we have Karine Silva versus Dion Barbosa. And this is a very short notice bout on this card. I believe that this fight was put together like less than like 2 weeks before UFC 319 actually happens. And I'm going to have to go with Karine Silva in this matchup. I think that she's the better striker. She's more experienced against ranked opposition in the flyweight division, even though she is coming off of a loss. So her momentum is kind of halted a little bit, but I think that she's going to bounce back, just fight at her own pace in this matchup, and win by a dominant decision victory. Now, moving up the card, in the middleweight division, we have Nursultan Rosaboyev versus Brian Battle. And I'm going to go with Nursultan Rosaboyev by a TKO. I believe that Nursultan Rosaboyev is an underdog in this matchup, and I can kind of see why. Brian Battle, he's been on a streak. He has some momentum behind him, but I just think that Nursultan Rosaboyev, his attributes and his finishing ability is going to win him this fight. Nursultan Rosaboyev, he's an explosive fighter with big power in his hands, and he has unorthodox striking because he is so huge for the middleweight and welterweight division. It's hard for his opponents to get like a read and timing on his strikes. He has a lot of range, and yeah, that can catch fighters off guard. Brian Battle, he's very durable and he is improving, but Brian Battle, he tends to slow down. And we saw that in this fight against Randy Brown, which many people called a robbery. He kind of just held him against the cage in that third round. Nursultan Rosaboyev, he is going to outdamage Brian Battle. I don't think that Nursultan Rosaboyev is going to let Brian Battle out physicality him, hold him down, hold him against the cage like Brian Battle did to Randy Brown. And like I said, Nursultan Rosaboyev, he has amazing finishing ability, crack on the feet, and he has an underrated ground game, even though he doesn't really show it. I think his jiu-jitsu is pretty good on the ground, and his takedown defense is pretty solid also. So I think that Nursultan Rosaboyev, he's going to win by like a round 2 TKO or maybe a decision if Brian Battle is durable enough to last all 3 rounds in this fight. But moving up the card, the next fight in this card is going to be in the lightweight division between Edson Barboza versus Drakkar Klose. And I'm going to pick Edson Barboza to win by a decision just because of Edson Barboza's like elite kicking game and his lateral movement. I think that's going to give problems to Drakkar Klose. Even though Edson Barboza, he is getting old, he's shown that in his last fight, he still has some of that quick twitch movement. He has some of that speed through his kicks. He has the ability to just keep fighting at his age. And I think that he's going to beat Drakkar Klose over 3 rounds. Even though Drakkar Klose, he does have some good boxing, he has some good pressure. Barboza, he's fought way better competition over his entire career than Drakkar Klose. So I think Edson Barboza, even though he's a little bit aged in this matchup, I think he's going to win by a decision through using his kicks to negate the pressure of Drakkar Klose and by using his takedown defense to keep defying his feet and just land the more damaging shots over the course of the fight. But moving on in the lightweight division, also we have Bobby Green versus Diego Ferreira. And I'm going to have to pick Diego Ferreira by a TKO. I think this is a no-brainer. Obviously, we all know what happened to Bobby Green in his last fight against Mauricio Rufy. He got flatlined, KO'd by a nasty spinning wheel kick. And I think Bobby Green's chin has really declined. And I just think Diego Ferrer, he's going to go out there and knock him out. Like I said, this is a kind of a no-brainer pick. I would not be surprised if Diego Ferreira is like a minus 500 in that territory of a favorite because how bad Bobby Green got knocked out in his last fight. While Bobby Green, he did show that he had some life to him when he fought Jim Miller at 300, but I just think that his career is basically over now. Once he loses this fight, he should just retire. Next fight on the card in the women's strawweight division, we have Jessica Andrade versus Lupita Gudinez. And I'm going to be going with Lupita Gudinez by a decision. I think that Lupita Gudinez has the wrestling pace to kind of frustrate the pressure of Jessica Andrade, who has struggled against opponents that mix in the takedowns. Jessica Andrade is dangerous, but I think Lupita Gudinez's durability, her cardio, gives her the edge over 3 rounds. And Lupita Gudinez's clinch control and her grappling is going to nullify some of that power out of Jessica Andrade's shots. And if she avoids a brawl and sticks to that type of game plan, I think that Lupita Gudinez can win this by a dominant decision. Next fight on the card in the middleweight division, we have Gerald Marshart versus Mikhail Oleguk. And I'm going with Mikhail Oleguk to win by a TKO. I think that Gerald Marshart, obviously he has that submission threat no matter who he faces. But I think that Mikhail, his striking has improved. He used to be a bottom feeder in the middleweight division, but he's slowly working his way up. And he's becoming like one of those solid mid-tier fighters in the middleweight division. I think that he's going to get through GM3 by a knockout. In GM3, he's been getting old. He's been getting a little bit slower. And I think his chin is kind of giving him problems as well. So I think Mikhail, he's going to go out there and knock out Joe Marshart. I would say like round 2 or 3. But moving on to the lightweight division, we have Alexander Hernandez versus Chase Hooper. And I'm going to be going with Chase Hooper to win this fight by a submission. We all know that Chase Hooper, his grappling is insane. The way that he flows on the ground with his opponents, the way that he can find the opponent's back, find those submissions, just be a overall grappling threat no matter where the fight goes on the ground is such a big part of this fight. I think that he's going to use his grappling ability to win this fight by submission. Alexander Hernandez, he has power, but we've seen in his fights, his gas tank kind of fades quickly, and he sometimes leaves openings when he's scrambling that Chase Hooper can take advantage of. And he's been caught in submissions before. And Chase Hooper, he's a relentless grappler on the ground. So I think that Chase Hooper is going to win by a second round submission. Moving to the main card, we have a fight in the welterweight division. In my opinion, this is like one of the best fights on the card. We have Jeff Neal versus Carlos Prates. And I'm going to be picking Carlos Prates to win this fight by decision. I think a lot of people are underestimating the durability of Jeff Neal. He's never been knocked out before. Actually, scratch that. I think he might have gotten knocked out against Kevin Holland in the regional scene. That might be completely wrong, but I think Kevin Holland has a win over Jeff Neal by knockout. So he might have gotten knocked out like once in his entire career. But overall in the UFC, Jeff Neal, he has not been finished by strikes on the feet. Carlos Prates, he does hit hard, but Jeff Neal, he's been hit clean on the chin. He doesn't go down in the UFC. So I think that this is actually going to be way more closer than people think because Jeff Neal is going to stay in there and constantly be there to throw back at Carlos Prates. I do think that Carlos Prates is going to get the edge in this matchup and win by a decision, but don't be expecting Carlos Prates to just walk in the cage and just flatline Jeff Neal in the first round because Jeff Neal, he's a very durable fighter. He has good boxing. He beat Bilal Muhammad, and that win aged so well for Jeff Neal. Jeff Neal, he has phenomenal takedown defense, which isn't even going to be a factor in this fight. I don't know why I bring it up, but that's another strength of Jeff Neal, though, is that he does have the takedown defense, which is why he posed such a threat to Bilal Muhammad. But anyways, back to the matchup. I think that this is going to be a closer fight than most people think. I definitely think Carlos Prates, his striking is going to be on a different level than Jeff Neal. But Jeff Neal, he's very defensively sound. He knows how to take a punch. Because of that, I think Carlos Prates, he's just going to win by like a 29-28 decision. But anyways, moving up the card, we have another banger matchup between Jared Kennaner versus Michael Venom Paige in the middleweight division. And I'm going to be picking Michael Venom Paige to win this fight by decision. Michael Venom Page's awkward rhythm and elusiveness can frustrate almost any opponent that he faces. Obviously, we saw him get that decision victory against Sharabullet Magomedov. We saw him beat fighters like Kevin Holland, and his striking style is just based off of speed and explosiveness. And Jared Cannonier, he's getting older in his career, and as you all know, the first thing to go as you age is going to be that speed. I think that Michael Venom Page is just going to stay at distance and just have an explosive contest and just beat Jared Cannonier by outstriking him while staying out of range at distance. That's like Michael Venom Page's like signature style. And I think that is going to be a problem for Jared Cannonier because he kind of likes to fight in the pocket a lot in his fights. We've seen him knock out RoboCop with that elbow in close range. And while that was an amazing win, Michael Venom Page, he's not going to be in Jared Cannonier's grill like that. He's going to be more elusive. He's going to be out of range, out of punching range, out of kicking range, and he's going to time his shots properly. And I can even see a TKO by Michael Venom Page because the way that he blitzes in, a lot of fighters just don't see the shots coming. And as we know, you get knocked out from the shots that you just don't see coming. You can't brace yourself for. And that's how I see this fight going. Michael Venom Page by either a dominant decision or a slight chance for Michael Venom Page winning by a knockout. But anyways, the feature fight of the card, we have Tim Elliott versus Kaya Sakura in the flyweight division. And I'm going to be picking Kaya Sakura to win by a TKO. Kaya Sakura, he lost his last fight. He lost his debut in the UFC. But if you watch his fights in Rizin, he is a high-level finisher with sharp counter-striking. And he has a really good killer instinct, especially against older and slower fighters. Kai Sakura, he's so explosive, he's so fast. And Tim Elliott, he's like pushing 40. I think he's like 38 or 39. And Kai Sakura, he's like 31, 32, 33, somewhere in that range. But anyway, Kaya Sakura, he's closer to his prime than Tim Elliott. And I think that he's going to win by a knockout. I can see a flying knee TKO. I can see a counter left hook in the pocket. Something like that. Kaya Sakura, his speed and precision is going to give him a major edge in the striking exchanges, and I can see him winning by a knockout. Now moving on to the co-main event in the featherweight division, we have Lerone the Miracle Murphy versus Aaron Pico. And a lot of people are kind of split on this matchup. I think that this is a very close matchup as well. But as we've seen recently, I think it's better to go with the fighter who actually has that solid UFC experience, that solid UFC foundation in their MMA career. So I'm going to be going with Lerone Murphy to win by a decision. Aaron Pico, he's a very dangerous fighter. He's very explosive. I see why a lot of people are picking him to win. But like I said, Lerone Murphy, he just has the UFC experience that Aaron Pico, he just doesn't have. Aaron Pico, he never fought the competition that Lerone Murphy has fought. And Lerone Murphy, he's shown to be able to adapt in his fights. We saw when Lerone Murphy fought Dan Ige, he got dropped in the first round. But he really pushed through that fight. He gritted through and he ended up winning the decision. A lot of the knockouts that you see from Aaron Pico, they're against people who aren't UFC competition, aren't UFC caliber, nowhere close to the UFC, and he's just knocking people out with like these gnarly overhands and just techniques that Lerone Murphy fought people who pose way more stylistic threats to his fighting style than Aaron Pico. We saw him go out against Josh Emmett and outstrike Josh Emmett on the feet. Josh Emmett, he could not land his signature overhand to secure that knockout finish. Lerone Murphy, he's very quick. He's very tactical the way that he fights. And I think he's going to bring that into this fight and win this fight by decision. Lerone Murphy, he has the composure, he has the cardio, and he can weather an early storm if he has to. So once he starts getting the timing and distance right, I think that Lerone Murphy, he can win this by a decision easily. Now, for the main event of UFC 319, for the middleweight title, we have Dricus du Plessis, the current middleweight champion, versus Khamzat Chimaev, the challenger, and this fight is very close. However, I'm going to be going with Dricus du Plessis to win by a knockout in round 4. A lot of people have been saying the same things that I've been thinking. Khamzat Chimaev, I think that he's going to go out there and be aggressive in round 1. And if Dricus makes it out of the first round, I think the knockout is inevitable. I think Dricus du Plessis has the cardio advantage in this matchup. The way that Khamzat Chimaev fights in the first round is not sustainable over a 5-round matchup. We've never seen Khamzat Chimaev go 5 rounds. In the fights that he's been scheduled to go 5 rounds, he never went 5 rounds. And Dricus du Plessis, he has that championship experience to lean back on. Khamzat Chimaev, he is good enough to submit Dricus du Plessis in the first round. But if Dricus du Plessis makes it out of the first round, like I said, the fight is going to be going in his favor. Dricus du Plessis, he has the striking to keep up with Khamzat Chimaev. He has the physicality. Dricus du Plessis, he's a very strong fighter. Khamzat Chimaev, he hasn't fought anyone as big as Dricus du Plessis in the middleweight division. Dricus du Plessis, he can defend the takedowns. I think that Dricus du Plessis, that's really all he's going to be training for in this fight camp, is just going to be defending those explosive, low takedowns from Khamzat Chimaev. And like I said, if Dricus du Plessis can defend the takedowns, I think the fight is going to be going in his favor the whole time. Khamzat Chimaev, yeah, he's been working on his cardio, but at the same time, we've never seen him go 5 rounds to even have a basis to judge his cardio off of in a 5-round matchup. That's really why I'm picking Dricus du Plessis. This is not a really confident pick, but I think the logical pick is to go towards Dricus du Plessis in this matchup. Khamzat Chimaev, he's shown to have weaknesses in his striking defense that Dricus du Plessis might be able to exploit. And Khamzat Chimaev, like I said, he has not been able to show that he can carry that same first round wrestling pace out of the first round into the 3rd round, into the 4th round. Khamzat Chimaev, he looks like a absolute animal, an absolute beast in the first round when the fight starts, but he turns into a completely different fighter when the fight gets out of the first round. He won't be able to secure those same takedowns. That's why I'm saying if Dricus can survive that first round onslaught, then the fight is going to be trending in his favor the entire time. I think that Dricus du Plessis, he's more likely to win a decision. He's more likely to win by a TKO. Of course, Khamzat Chimaev is more likely to win by a submission, but I just see Dricus du Plessis just not getting submitted. In Khamzat Chimaev's last fight against Robert Whittaker, that was a very impressive performance. He did ragdoll Robert Whittaker for like 3 minutes, but the thing that is so hard to judge about that matchup is that you can't really count that submission as a full, like, dominant submission before Khamzat Chimaev. Because, like we all know, Whittaker, his teeth gave out because he had a pre-existing injury. Robert Whittaker's chin was not 100% that night. So yeah, Khamzat Chimaev, he did get the submission victory, but you can't use that victory to judge what's going to happen in this fight because Dricus du Plessis, he's not going to tap like Robert Whittaker. If you watch the fight, Khamzat Chimaev's like forearm was over Robert Whittaker's chin for like 1 second, then Robert Whittaker like panic tapped. Dricus du Plessis, he's not going to be doing any of that. He's training submission defense. He's training takedown defense. He's going to be training grappling this whole fight camp. I think Dricus du Plessis, he's going to make it out of the first round. Kamaru Usman made it out of the first round. You can't name a legit high-level middleweight that Khamzat Chimaev submitted in the first round other than Robert Whittaker. And Robert Whittaker, like I said, his jaw was compromised before the fight. His jaw was made out of paper mache that fight. And the submission was not underneath Robert Whittaker's neck. If you look at the fight, Robert Whittaker, he was doing most of the right things to defend the choke of Khamzat Chimaev. It was just that unfortunate moment with his jaw. But I think that if Dricus du Plessis was in that fight, he'll be able to outlast Khamzat Chimaev and make it to the next round which is where the fight will turn in his favor. So like I said, I think Dricus Plessis, he's going to win this fight by a TKO in the championship rounds or a decision victory. So that's going to be it for my predictions for UFC 319. As usual, like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in my next video.